Um,
Started the recording?
yeah, I started the recording.
Okay.
All right.
I'll mute myself.
Yeah, I'm gonna get started and just hope that it fills in. Doesn't seem to be much on the agenda. So, good evening, everyone. Today's March 28th. We're calling the community board rezoning meeting to order. Surprise, Ms. James isn't here at this particular time, so I'll be covering the meeting tonight. Uh, Topics of discussion, being that she doesn't have a chairperson's report that was delivered to me. She wanted to address the borough president's comments in our last general board meeting. He basically asked the community to identify blocks that they would like to remain untouched or unmodified in future zoning plans, and areas where we would um, consider upzoning. Um, in the past, I know that we have the WXY um, presentation that has some proposed areas already. I'm not sure if he's aware of that actual presentation. I'm not sure if he's asking for more information in addition to that presentation, or if we need to just give more asks. I will say that in other discussions, he did say that they were looking at our community in a different lens as far as rezoning. They were looking to partition the community either in 3 or 4 equal parts coming from west to east, and addressed each area as its own specific zoning matter. Starting from the corridor where the transit hubs are on Nostrand Avenue, and a little bit west of that, and going eastward. I'm not sure if that information got to you. As the room fills in, and that will be more or less what we'll be discussing at the round table discussion, as per your chair's direction. So at this time, I'm gonna shift down the agenda to the approval of the meeting minutes. Will someone make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for February 28th?
Do we have quorum?
It's a question from Ms. James. I'm sorry. I mean, Ms. Frazier. How many members are typically in this committee, Ms. Frazier?
Oh, it's quite a number of members here. We
I'm
have 14.
looking at the last meeting, and it's not like
Yeah, most of the persons listed on the last meeting, they weren't all are not members of the committee. I'm pulling it up now, just bear with me.
say we don't.
No, we do not.
I'm gonna say we don't. All right, you're making it easy on me. I guess we'll have to table that unless the room fills up, and we'll move on to new business, which is the roundtable discussion. Anybody want to start out? Well, did anybody go to the meeting or hear the comments at the general board meeting from the borough president as it pertains to zoning? And do you have any comments now? This is a platform to have that discussion. Ms. Bree?
Hi, Mr. Frey. This is Bree DeCosta. My question is about the petition. Should we just stop getting signatures? Like, what is the plan based on what he's already shared with us? How should we be handling that at this point?
I don't think that you should change. I'm not speaking from, obviously Ms. James is going to have her own plan. I don't think that you should change any plan that you had prior to that comment. That's always been his stance. None of the information that I've heard from him in our meetings, which Ms. James has been a part of, has changed. He just decided to say that to the community at large publicly. I would steadfast with your petitions, get as many signatures as you can get, and I don't think that we're going to deviate from whatever plan's been proposed and put in place currently. But we just have to take into consideration what his aims are. I mean, we've said it omnisciently for months, but now that he's come in front of us and said it directly to us, we have to take it more seriously. You know, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Ship?
Hi there, thanks. I've seen the paper, the petition, which I will try to sign and get signatures as well if I can. But I heard you mention, and I wasn't able to join the last meeting. I heard you just now mention a plan with a division of different parts. I think of CB17 and different corridors. Is that, I don't think I have that document. Is that available?
That wasn't documented. That was said to me verbally from both
Okay.
the borough president. I think he mentioned that in his actual, well, I'm not gonna, I guess it was a speech, and it was also mentioned to me by Daniel from Councilmember Farrell Lewis's team, that they're basically trying to handle our particular community board in sections and not as a whole.
I
They
see.
feel, I guess the idea is what I was told is that they're feeling that it'd be much easier, which I don't particularly agree with, to address the issues from the most concentrated areas and move outwards. They feel like they could get that pushed along through their constituencies more easier than trying to address the entire district. That's the sentiment that I took from the conversations that I had.
Okay. Do you know if they might offer something in writing or some plan or layout or?
I think that they are actually.
Okay.
I could reach out, or I'll have Miss James reach out to Miss Farrell Lewis's office. I mean, she's the one who put it out there, and it didn't seem like it originated from her. It seemed like it's coming from, or maybe from her offices. I think she's the head of land use at City Council, so maybe that's a direction that she's trying to take it. She may feel that it's more strategic, so I'll have Miss James reach out and see if we could get something as far as how the the partitions are.
Great.
Put that down. Thank you, Mr. Ship.
Thank you. Thank you.
A lot of hands going up. I'm gonna go with Ms. Robinson. Ms. Robinson?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so is there a date by which we have to get the petition signed by, getting back, sort of?
I honestly cannot answer that question for you.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not
And
sure.
also, you don't know, okay. Also, as far as you're saying the borough president want to break it down in 3 areas, is that what you said?
It seems like
Three
they want to,
specific-
yeah, they want to partition our district into 3 or 4 separate areas to be addressed. How that partition is
And
happening, that didn't really get spelled out to me, but in order of importance, it started near the Nostrand Avenue corridor. You know, I don't know how many blocks east or west of that, north or south of that, per se, but I know it started there, and it would head eastward.
And they would be breaking it down, in zones, am I correct?
I guess they would call it zones or areas of attention, you know, and then within those areas of attention, it would be what would be upped, kept the same, and or what would be upzoned, whatever would be unchanged. And he kind of said that he wouldn't be addressing down zoning, but that doesn't mean that the group's not going to try, you know. So I guess instead of doing the entire community, which I believe we have a plan out there already, I think that they're looking to do it in a segmented fashion.
So the contextual zoning, which we are trying to get now, would not apply if he does this?
Not necessarily. I don't think the two things are alike. I mean, he shared with us, yeah, what he shared with contextual zoning would pertain to particular lots and zones in certain areas. I think that he is acknowledging that he will ultimately contextual zone. He just tried not to do the entire district as a whole, You're just trying to do it in segments.
He'll pick and choose which areas he's going to do the contextual zoning in. Is that correct?
I'm not saying that. I didn't say that. I said that the contextual zoning is one item that's going to be addressed, even though it does our entire district, is not going to be addressed as a whole. It's going to be addressed in segments. So that's not me saying that it's never going to be addressed in any other area. I'm just saying that he's trying to break it apart into different segments and address it in that fashion. To answer your question, Ms. Robinson,
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Mr. Tate.
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, but actually, that was basically my question regarding how is he going to, because to me, that's a little concerning that they're going to break us out in 4 parts. Because after I listened to him at the last meeting, at the community board, the general board meeting, he left me with a lot of concerns. And now hearing this, it's very, very concerning because to me, as a whole, we could work together. But if we can break us up in 3 to 4 different parts, some of us may be bearing the blunt of the words of what it could be. Because if I understand it correctly, that means that some of this area, like I guess east of Brooklyn Avenue, like example, like around Farragut Road, that they have a little harder time trying to build. we could lose out on that, and they could start building farther down this way. Am I correct in thinking that way, or because I'm a little confused with the heat breaking us up?
Yeah, I was a little confused by it too, but the clarity that I'm getting is that, or what I think how it should be looked at to avoid any confusion is that your plan should be your plan. Your zoning plan should be your zoning plan. Whatever provisions or whatever assessments have been made in the past or have been adjusted currently needs to be structured regardless, right? So you need to know how you want your entire neighborhood to be, or what your preferred version of your neighborhood to be zoned or to be modified in whatever way. Now, as he's coming to address those areas, you need to have your answers in place, in whatever order he decides to do it. If he decides to go from 1 to 4, from 2 to 3, or 1, 4, 2 to 3, at least if you have your whole neighborhood mapped, it shouldn't be an issue for you to actually have your issues concerned in those particular segments, wherever they are. You kind of need to know, well, outside of whatever they're planning to do, our group needs to know as a whole what we want the community to look like from a preferred method and where we want the concessions to be. Because I think that's what ultimately he's looking for. He's looking for concessions, right? It doesn't appear, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but it doesn't appear that he'll be looking to downzone in any areas, right? I'm not saying that may not end up being the case, but if he does decide to downzone, he's going to be looking to upzone significantly in others. And I think that we need to know where those other areas need to be, or where we would consider those areas to be, right? Having an answer when a question is asked is better than trying to figure it out once it gets dumped on us. So I'm reading between the lines, so to speak, and just saying that if we didn't have a map, which I think we did, but I've been in and out of this committee from time to time, we need to have one, and we need to be able to answer fluidly where we would want certain actions to happen in the community. I wouldn't, obviously you can never quail any concerns. We always need to be concerned, but at least he's a straight shooter. He said whatever he needed to say, and we know what we're up against. So with that in mind, it's best to be as prepared as possible, right? If the original map that we had in place is a baseline, then we need to work on it. We need to start asking questions. We need to start canvassing neighborhoods. We need to start seeing, even the map we may have had in the past has probably changed quite a bit, in 3 years' time. So maybe some blocks have already, I'm sure the Rogers Avenue in Bedford, that multi-story building isn't on there, and that was a commercial zone, if I'm correct, and that just popped up out of nowhere, So I wouldn't. I'm not going to say ignore his his comments. We have to acknowledge his comments, but it shouldn't deviate from whatever plan you have or whatever plan you've been putting together with your time.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, but for the record, I do believe that I heard him say that he was not considering any down zoning. So just for that, but you don't have to comment on that. But thank you very much for your explanation.
We heard the same thing, Mr. Tate. We heard the same thing. Okay. Miss Bennett?
Hi, yes, good evening. I was listening very intently, and it seems to be a shame that you would have a borough president that would make that remarks of how he's going to divide up their community without sitting down and talking to the community people. We've already looked into this, and he said he doesn't want to consider. He stated that he doesn't want to consider downzoning. Well, that's not his choice. It's still going to be what we need. And your map does not include all the information. It doesn't include the land deed restrictions. They can only upzone or build upzone with what that restriction limits. And if there is one, and it's on most of this land because it was originally farmland, yes, they can't go over it. But once it's invoked, that's it. They did not want us to find this out, but it is there. And we should go ahead with the civil rights violation because it is. It's very prejudicial to make that remark. We're going to divide this up. That doesn't sound very democratic to me. And it sounds like they're going to divide it up, and sorry, say divide and conquer, and push the people here out. Because, as I stated before, and I was at that meeting, when they put a building up next to you, say next to you, that person is getting a tax write-off. You get a tax increase. That doesn't sound very good. It sounds horrible. That's a good way of putting people into the street. Essentially, you pay for that developer's tax write-off. That needs to be addressed. And to come into a community of color and say, oh, we're going to divide you up. You can't downzone. Other communities did it. What you do for one, you do for all. I want to know how many people on this line agree with that.
We'll hear shortly. Thank you, Ms. Bennett. I'm gonna go to Hazel Martinez.
Good evening. I have this to say. It seems to me that our district is getting away from us. These meetings are not open to the committee, so that we are left to depend on the thoughts of the few people that do attend these meetings. And there should be no division. Some of the blocks in this community have already been destroyed. And for the record, there's no politician that's a straight shooter. They always have an agenda, and seems to our district is easy pickings apparently, because it seems like, I don't know, the people who go to these meetings aren't clear on exactly what was done, and because all what you're talking about was proposed. We told them exactly what we want. Now it's easy for them to divide it up because it's divide and conquer. And what happened to democracy? The borough president is making an autocratic decision?
That's correct. Like I said, it's not very democratic.
Hazel Martinez. I mean,
Yes,
Allison.
I'm done.
Sorry, Allison Martinez. Thank you.
Good evening. I guess what I'm thinking right now is one thing, the borough president, he didn't say that there would be no downzoning. he said that every plan would have to have basically a holistic approach. We weren't going to get away with just having down zoning. So we can look and figure out the areas that we want to preserve how they currently are. And I personally think that dividing into thirds, while I get that it's easier to do smaller chunks of rezoning overall as a practice, in this case, unless you're going to be able to secure that by doing it that way, we don't lose the ability to leverage the overdevelopment that we've already contributed to those goals in the other thirds, then that doesn't help us. Because if they're all looked at as individual plans, then every area would have to upgrade. And that means the area that is already R4 would now then have to carry the heavy lift of developing a larger upzoning plan than it would have to if it could leverage what's already happening along the train lines. So that does not make, and since they're not going to be willing to, at least I don't perceive that they'd be willing to put that in writing, that we could leverage the development that's already occurring along the train lines for the benefit of the middle, then I don't think that makes sense. We have no choice but to move forward with a holistic plan for the area. And I don't think that it's appropriate for, I don't know who's having these conversations, but they're not had with the committee. The committee is not doing any work. I don't see the committee doing any mapping or any of those things. It hasn't had meetings like that. So I don't know what preparations are being done or who's having these conversations, but it needs to be broader, the mix of people who are sitting at those tables, because these are the same people you're going to then ask to vote, who are then going to ask to go out in the community and basically sell these ideas, but they're not involved in the developing of them. And I think that's really disrespectful to all the years of work that many of the people who are on this call and others in the land use community have done, where they were very inclusive and involved the community in everything that they did. And that has to be brought back. Otherwise, we're never going to get where we need to go because we're not going there together. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Ms. Viglianti?
Got me in the middle of a chew. I agree with Allison.
Okay.
And to piggyback on that, Allison, you're talking about leveraging, but I kind of asked him that specifically at the meeting, and I said, considering that there's already so much building, I mean, I kind of said it in a maybe an offhand way. I said, are you going to give us a break? And he's like really adamant that we're not going to be able to leverage the building that's already being built to get more of what we want. I at this point, my feeling is I don't even want to negotiate with the city anymore. I'm like, I totally don't want to deal with it. The other thing is, I think we're overthinking the corridor thing, because they already know what they want to do. They want to take Nostrand Avenue, they want to take Church Avenue, they want to take Utica Avenue. So those are the corridors. Those are three. I don't know how if they want to break up any more than that, but that's really what they're focused on, and we already know that. So they don't have any different plan in their mind. That's what they want. They want those big main avenues. That's it. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to negotiate with the city.
So what's the alternative? Just go with your plan, propose it, and adjust accordingly?
I don't know. I almost think like we need to just back away from it altogether, because I think by this wanting to rezone at this point, we're not going to get what we want. I think that if we leave the zoning the way it is, let them just build where they're building, and then the rest of us will be safe. I mean, the rest of the community that's got the down zoning already will be safe. Because if we open it up, then like Allison said, we're going to open up all the lower zoned areas. So to me, it just doesn't make sense at this point. I don't feel safe. I don't trust them, and I don't feel like I want to negotiate. That's just my opinion.
I think we still got to take into consideration that we have a lot of underutilized FAR, and that's the danger,
Yeah.
Although some will be protected, we have to never forget that we are underbuilt in many areas.
But we're not under, like, we're the R4 area, and these areas are not, they're saturated. You can't build anymore in R4. So if we have to get to get something, we're gonna have to give up all the saturated area that we have, and we're gonna have to open it up. So I don't really think we should do that.
Okay, it's a different take. I'm gonna circle back. There's probably some comments off of some. Thank you, Ms. Vigliotti. I'm gonna circle back to Mr. Ship. Seeing the hands in the order.
Hi there, thank you. I had a question. Having missed the last meeting, maybe I didn't appreciate the distinctions here that are an important focus, the upzoning versus the downzoning. If someone could explain that simply to me, what is sort of implied by that, and if it's relevant at all. I think my area is at R6, and so which maybe is one that would either go up or down depending on the outcomes of these things that are being considered. And then I have another question, which is when I look at the, which I've used frequently in the past, a website, the DOB thing, I think maintains a building on my block. It sort of lists where they're tearing down and where they're going to build new stuff. I've noticed lately that it's totally empty. For CB17, it doesn't sort of list any new tear downs and no new buildings, but I feel like that's not true because I still see lots of things happening. So I'm wondering if anyone has any information about whether that website is not being updated, or if the DOB is just not publishing stuff that will make people upset, or does anyone have any information about how to find out what's happening with tear downs and new buildings? Those are my two questions.
If you can, you have to go by the site and get the permit numbers. And look it up by permit number.
Okay. But what about tear downs?
Same thing, you have to tear it down, you have to have a demolition permit number. And if they don't have one, it's a little hard to check, but you can still try to check for the property lot number.
Okay, so you gotta do a piece by piece search.
What block are you on?
I'm on New York Avenue.
Between, what's the cross streets?
I'm down near H in Glenwood.
Okay. Oh, that's a hit zone.
Yeah.
Does anyone take a crack at the upzoning thing, or do you want me to do it? You had a question about upzoning and downzoning, what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the implication for various areas?
Anybody else want to take a crack at it? Allison?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing that was said.
His question was to, I guess in an eloquent way or in a layman's way, explain upzoning and what it means and downzoning to a particular area.
So what it means is, like, everyone knows that every area is zoned a certain way that controls the way that it can be used. That also controls the height factor that you can build, in addition to the types of buildings you can build. So in upzoning, that means that we're trying because the city is in a housing crisis, they're trying to find ways that they can increase the height factor of how many units they can actually get in a spot. And in this case, also get some affordable housing built into those projects. They leverage that against, like, the single family homes and all of that are that you see in the R4, R2, R3, which are usually like set back and single family homes for the most part, 2 families max. So what they're trying to do is find ways that they can increase the zoning so that they can get higher built, more units built, and increase what is called the floor area ratio, so they can get more units and then hopefully provide more affordable housing. But that's not, the reality of what we're seeing as a result. But that's the goal of upzoning and downzoning. Downzoning means you can build lower things. You can't build higher than this lower point. Upzoning is you can build up to whatever the maximum is of the zoning that's allowed.
I gotcha. So that both are on the table as it were at this point, and the question of where they would propose the up versus the down is sort of uncertain because the maps have not been sort of suggested or circulated yet that are under consideration.
The maps, the map of this area has existed, it's the same zoning that's existed since 1961, which was when it was first done. So across the whole city. They really, in there, as the city's goal is really to upzone everywhere they can so that they can address the housing crisis that we know that we're living in. However, certain areas are bearing the brunt of that goal more than others, partly because some areas like our community did not take advantage of down zoning during the Bloomberg administration when that was an option. And then now we have, during the de Blasio administration, we had MIH, which is, basically trying to get affordable housing, which increased, the profitability that you get higher buildings for more housing. And now we're still living with that affordable housing requirement.
There's also the small dynamic of some of our homes are built on lots that are underutilizing the available air rights. I'm gonna use the word
Yes.
that's there. So that's what puts us in a unique situation. What you're
Where you
seeing
live,
around the district,
That's not in the R4 area.
no,
that's
where
correct,
he
but
lives is R6.
Yeah.
Where he lives is R6, and that's why it's a target, because that location is, all of those are mostly 1 to 2 family homes, Victorians and the like.
yeah,
And it's right by the Junction train station. And that's why when you're now seeing all of those 8-unit
yeah,
apartment
exactly.
buildings going up, that's
That's
really
what
what
I'm trying to lean
matches
into.
the zoning that's
That's
there.
that's why I'm trying to paint that picture. The fact that you see a Victorian home or a single family home on a particular lot at this particular point in time, right, doesn't mean that without our input, they can't acquire that lot, which they've been doing, and put up a 6-family because that's what the rights allow. And if they get 2 adjacent lots, they can combine that far, right? Put up buildings possibly narrower or higher, as long as they stay within the square footage of the lot, right?
Again, you have to understand that that's only in, like, from R6 and up. R5 and down, there's really not much more building that can be done. So when we try to downzone the 6s and the 7s, they're gonna upzone the 4s and the 5s, and then the whole community is gonna be oversaturated and overdeveloped.
But unfortunately, we have residents that own an R6 and own an R7.
I
So
know that, but that's why negotiating with the city is a very tricky deal.
It's treacherous.
And I don't know what the answer is.
Susan,
does that clarify what's going on? Does that give you an idea of what you're seeing?
Yeah, no, it's not, it's not a mystery to me. It's actually just, it's interesting to hear the comments because, if I was in an R4, I might have the same sentiment, but I'm not. So my sentiment personally is a little bit different.
Yeah,
yes,
and that is a problem too, because it's almost like pitting homeowners against each other.
yeah,
Because I'm in R4, I don't want to give up this community because it's, the whole area that's R4 is really preserved. So I don't want to give it up. And I understand that if I was in R6, I'd be really upset. So it's very hard to negotiate this.
yes.
All right, I'm going to circle to Mr. Tate. Your hand's raised.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yes, basically what I want to bring up is that we cannot give up the fight. We have to continue, and even if it is a negotiation or whatever it is, because if we leave it in the hands of the city, and he already said, he meaning Reynoso, mentioned that they talking about breaking up in different pieces. And as Ms. Vigilante mentioned, they're looking at the corridors from Nostrand, and they also want Utica Avenue. So if they decided to divide and grab from Utica to change up zone from Nostrand to Utica, on one section, a lot of us who are in the middle going to be suffering because all these R3 and R4s could turn out to be R6. So we do have to be careful, and we cannot leave it just in their hands. We have to continue to fight and continue to try to negotiate with them so they could know exactly where we stand and what we don't want. I just want to give that warning.
Yeah, that's what Ms. James had suggested, just to shame them. These politicians have turned against the constituents. It's pretty much sold us out. When they talk about dividing up, that dividing up to whom? The developers? Because those are the ones who did
Yeah,
not
yes.
really the
Yes, one more thing I wanted to say is that they have stopped sending me what you call it, mails regarding purchasing my house for cash and everything. And I'm not living in, I don't have a big lot. I live in raw houses. And all of a sudden, they've been inundating me again with those letters about, like, we'll buy your house for cash, we'll do this, the other. And I personally have seen a lot of developers coming around here taking pictures. So it's something that we have to be leery about, so we have to be very careful and don't leave it in the hand of the city. We have to continue to our discussion with them so they know exactly where we stand.
yes, but I agree with Ms. James. Even though she's not at the meeting, she said file a lawsuit. We need to get it done because no other community has gone through this. Just this one. And it's not right. You didn't divide and conquer Queens. You didn't divide and conquer other parts of Brooklyn, mainly this one. They targeted this one because we're not a flood zone. And they want this. The heck with the trains. They want to run a tram down through here. I'm on the transportation committee. They discussed that. There's so much this community has that it wants. But it don't want the people here. It just wants the land. Like I said, the map does not include the deed restriction. If it did, they wouldn't be looking at us. But once invoked, they can go jump in the lake. They can buy the land, but they can't build upon it. It limits what can be built. But it just has to be invoked. It doesn't matter if they want to upzone. They can't. They can put it on paper, but once that deed restriction is invoked, that's it. End of discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Ms. Martinez, Hazel Martinez.
Yes, I am very concerned because I really just don't like how all this is going. I don't see where we have no one on our side, not even the people that we elect to office, because word on the street is our councilwoman is working on something else. And we better and I'm not sure about the people. I don't know who goes to these meetings, but I don't feel we're well represented at all because this is getting worse. Instead of there's no progress here. It seems like we have regressed a bit.
Are you speaking to the rezoning issue?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to.
Because
And-
I don't know who goes to these meetings, but it's definitely not people who've been working on land use a long time. So I'm not sure exactly what is being said. I don't know.
What
I
meetings
don't
you're
feel like
pertaining
our interest is really being reinforced. And so therefore I agree with Marguerite in a way.
Yeah.
What meetings are you pertaining to, though? I'm not sure what meetings you're.
I don't know what meetings you all go to, but this is not a committee. It's just that we come every month and listen to wherever you all went during the month. We don't really have any idea of what is really being said or any ability to interpret it. I don't see notes. I don't see anything.
No, we don't. We'd like to see notes. We'd like to hear recordings of these meetings. It would be very, very enlightening to hear exactly what is said, not what pseudo said, what is said. Because I used to be on that committee. Me, Hazel, her daughter, and a few others. We were on the original 1, 2, 3, XYZ.
I'm not sure what meeting you're referencing to this very moment. I have no idea what meeting you're talking. I'm sorry.
Any closed meetings, any closed meetings.
We don't have closed meetings.
They don't? Oh, no closed meetings with the Reynoso?
I never had a closed meeting with Renault, so all the meetings I had with him has been public.
Well, we would love to know when.
That's the borough meetings that I think happen. I've only been to 2. I have no personal or private meetings with Mr. Reynoso pertaining to this topic. I can't speak for anyone else.
How about this? The next time they have one, and invite some of the older
I
committee members.
haven't heard about any.
Okay. Ms. Robinson and then Ms. Quashi to follow.
Yes. If all the other community boards, community board 18, whatever, most of them have contextual zoning, and we're the only ones that we don't have it. How is the borough president going to address this? I mean, the other community boards have it. We're fighting to get it. So I'm a little confused here as to what is really happening. Are we going to get the contextual zoning thing or not? I am just confused.
It's the tale of two cities. It's what we want and what we've wanted for several years, and many of the people in this committee and others have put many, many long hours in to try to accomplish something. But now we're going up against what the city wants, right? And whatever markers they're trying to hit. They're trying to fight housing with building more housing, which statistically doesn't work. It's not the proper strategy, especially when you have empty housing units and 30,000 NYCHA units empty. The plan is always to build more because that's what they think, and that's what whatever metrics or whomever's in those higher up offices are telling them. But fighting housing with building more housing statistically doesn't work. It's just what it is. But that's not going to deter their plan. At this moment, we know what the plan is. So mount your defenses, and I would say just go forward with whatever plans you have in place. Get the appropriate agencies to address you. You've done that. You've gotten your letters written. I think you've had your letters of support sent out. And I'm not going to say ignore what he's doing because you have to pay attention to it, but keep your eye on the battle, on the smaller battles until it's time for the war. All right, Ms. Quashi.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Just to bring to everyone's attention, when the question just came up, what's going to happen to the other community boards who already have contextual rezoning? There was an article that came out last week about market rate rent control. I think I sent it to you, Kwame.
You did. It's in the group.
Yes. What they're trying to pass a bill, and where if you are a landlord that has a tenant, they're trying to make it where you will not be able to charge what you would normally be able to charge on your own for rent. You'll be have to register your apartment, and they would govern how much you charge, like the other landlords who are rent controlled. And so when your taxes go up, your water bills go up, and everything else go up, you won't be able to pay for your tenants will probably be living at your expense. And so that will force you to sell your property to a builder, and then they'll get what they want on the other way. So that's how they'll force the other contextual rezoning people to sell their property. That's the plan.
I put the article that she's referencing in the chat if you wanted
Thank
to
you.
make yourself with it. It's more or less an attack. It's an attack. It's a bill. It really attacks small landlords, really. I mean, it's making small landlords fall under the provisions of larger landlords. For those who aren't large landlords, when you're renovating properties, there were provisions in the past that allowed you to renovate X amount and get X amount deducted on the back end. They restricted that, put a chokehold on that a little bit. That's why a lot of the units that's been going back to market now haven't really been renovated. They've been painted over, light switches touched up because they're not giving them the same amount of money or the same amount of leeway from a deductible standpoint to revamp these apartments. And they're trying to apply like those rules to smaller landlords, which is a little ridiculous. It's a little ridiculous, but the article's there. It's a bill proposed. I think there's a resident who's basically taking that by the arms, and she's discussing it at large. Really, she's breaking it down, and she has a couple of good examples in there to explain exactly what's being proposed as it pertains to that bill.
Mr. Frank, what city councilmen are proposing this? What city councilmen are proposing this?
Was there. I'm gonna give the floor to Ms. Viglianti, and I'm gonna search the article and get you that. All right.
Yes, sir.
I was just going to address some, I don't remember who said this before, but that it feels like we're going backwards. It might have been Hazel, I'm not sure. But I think one of the things that happened is that now that we've split these committees, land use, and then we have this other rezoning committee, I'm more confused than ever about who's doing what and who's supposed to do what. And it's kind of broken us down, and it like watered us down. I just feel that we would have more strength or focus if we were all together. Because we have this other meeting and we talk about rezoning. We're talking about it here, but then information doesn't get to the other. What we talk about at the other meeting is not at this meeting, but we're talking about the same thing at both meetings. It's very frustrating, and I think it's weakening us. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Viglianti. There being the New York Post is New York Posted. Sorry, reading the article. They're very good at not mentioning names. You know, this is centered more around the subject matter of the person that they're reporting to, but they're not really mentioning any city council people's names or assembly members' names per se. Oh, here we go. The bill has 54 co-sponsors in the 150-member assembly, 22 co-sponsors in the 63 state senate. Assembly sponsor Pamela Hunter, Syracuse. So it seems like it's a state thing. It's not just a city thing, but if they do it statewide, it affects everybody. Right. And that's just me shooting off the head. All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Nothing?
Yolanda Aline?
Oh, you on the phone?
Yes, I'm on the phone.
Sure. You have the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you. One of the problems here is that we're dealing with the unknown. We know it's specifically what we want, but everybody else from the borough president, the board of planning, or whatever his name is, no one is being specific to exactly what they want to do. And when you're dealing with the unknown, it's the worst thing to deal with the unknown because you don't know how to fight. You know, we in a guerrilla warfare because we don't know who the enemy is. We have an idea who the enemy is, but we don't know specifically what is the enemy. You know, so that's one of the problems. Until we can get specific information, then we have idea how we're going to deal with it and how we can fight. We are very specific in what we want, but everybody else, that from the politician to the board of planning to the mayor, everybody, even the governor, no one is being specific to exactly what is entailed and the detail to what is needed so that we can say yay, nay, or whatever is needed so that we can say, no, let's do it this way. But until we get some specific information, we just chasing clouds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aline. Mr. Ship.
Thank you. Another, hopefully a simple one. In further to my question about the building on my block website, which doesn't have any information from DOB about current activity, which I would propose, I don't know, I'll do it, but recommend others to complain to DOB about that as well, because I feel like it's a little bit of, it's insincere for them to have that up and not show what's going on. But is it the case that that all the tear downs and the new buildings that everyone has seen going up over the last few years, none of that is postponed in any way. The Department of Buildings is like not stopping issuance of tear down permits if requested and if it's allowed and so on and so forth, merely because perhaps this rezoning, upzoning, zoning changes concept is being considered in various quarters. Is that right? Is it, to make sure I'm clear? I have heard from some of my neighbors, they said, oh, DOB is not allowing that anymore, quote unquote, not allowing the tear downs anymore. But my sense of it is that's just not true. If whoever may have heard that, it must be uninformed, because it seems to me that no zoning changes have occurred. Therefore, you know, if this developer wants to buy one of these R6 houses and tear it down, they still can just go and do so as they please. Is that the case?
Yeah, I haven't seen any information that will confirm or deny anything that's saying that anything is being restricted, you know?
Okay.
I haven't seen that. That doesn't mean that something may not be in place, but I can't say that I've seen anything to that. I would say that use the Building Information Services portal at the Department of Buildings website. It's the BIS.
Yeah.
Put in the property address associated, or the one that you're inquiring about. If you don't see any permits posted, they're technically not supposed to be doing work. So if there's no demolition permits posted, then there's no demolition. A lot of times these lots just stay empty, green boarded up, so that the pedestrians don't have access to the actual site. But I don't know if it's happening everywhere, or, you know, I can't speak to your particular areas. The areas that I'm visiting or passing by seem to have activity and seem to be moving on with their builds. So for you and that particular property you're looking at, utilize that system. You can search by address, or if it's enough of a lot, you can search by the area, and it should tell you whether permits have been pulled,
Yeah.
or whatever the history is.
Right.
Lot.
It's just there had been so many. I was like, I can't search all of these things myself. I just had to try to find a list on a website. There's too many of them to search. There's so many.
They're not going to make it easy for you, fortunately, you know.
Thank you.
They're not going to make it easy. So yeah, that's the BIS system, Department of Buildings. You need just a general amount of information, and you could pull some information up. Mr. Westcott.
Good evening, everyone. Could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Westcott.
I've been sitting listening to different speakers. My question towards Mr. Chair, the boards have been fighting the zoning for quite a long time. What is our representative doing? They have never came to board to say anything. Whose side are they on? That's my question. Because we elect these people and they promise a whole lot. And as they get elected and we have a problem, they just leave us alone like the lone wolves. So I'd like to know, you know, who representing who's trying to do something for us.
As far as our representatives are concerned, any land use matter, I can only speak on that. There's only been addressed by one representative, and that's been Farrah Lewis. I haven't had any luck by Darlene Mealy to address any of our zoning issues. I haven't had any luck by any other representative. I haven't spoken to Mr. Cunningham. I haven't spoken to Mr. Parker about the issue, you know, so it's a broader question that needs to be asked, you know. If everybody doesn't know, somebody must know. I can only speak to what I've been dealing with on my end. And the only person that's been responsive has been that office. Being honest.
So I think about time, no, it's about time we start, seriously speaking, it's about time we start holding these people to the fight, because they're being elected to do certain jobs and they definitely are not doing it, period. Okay, that's all I have to say. It's very annoying. It's very annoying.
Thank you, Mr. Westcott. Ms. Smart.
Hi, yes, good evening, everyone. I have been listening like Mr. Westcott has, and I mean, it's getting to the point where it's so extremely irritating. There's so many things I would like to say. But this fight, we have been having this fight for many, many years. I've been on this board since 2011. And this fight has been going on for a very, 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 very long time. And there are things, I mean, I too believe that some of the elected officials, we're electing them. And it's beginning to seem like they all have their own agendas. It's beginning to seem like our cries are falling on deaf ears. And they come, they listen to us, but they're not really invested in helping us. And that's the thing, listening to us, and then you go away. But then you're not giving us the feedback, you're not being supportive. It feels like they are just doing their own thing. And um, another point I heard Ms. Viglianti mention, which I really have to point out, and I agree with her, it seems like we have become weaker. When we were together as land use and we were handling with all of these issues on one platform, we are now divided into two separate groups. And a lot of the things that are happening with land use, I come in from work late just about every evening. A lot of the things I used to be with land use as well. And you just don't have the time to stretch yourself this thinly to get involved with this group and that group. And a lot of the issues are being discussed among two separate groups. And I think it's time that we consider probably bringing them together again. Perhaps we'll get more done collectively as a larger body. It's just a suggestion. I've been listening to what's been going on for a while, but I do feel like we are being held hostage. I'm another person that's on a large lot. I am being hassled on a daily basis. I get emails, I get text messages. I have no idea how all of my information has become public. I'm getting calls on my job about my house. Could you sell a house? And one of them had the obnoxious nerve to tell me, Miss, we really don't need your house. We just need your land. And I mean, that was like the max for me because I have got a huge backyard that stretches all the way to New York Avenue. I've just about had it. So, I mean, I listen in each month, but I think it's time, whatever we can do collectively to really strengthen this and hold someone's feet to the fire. It is time. It's been way too long. And whatever we need to do collectively, people, let's get together and do it. Vote them out if this is what it's about. If they're not there to seek our interests, then it's time they move on and we get new people in that will seek our interests. Thank you and have a good night all.
Thank you, Ms. Smart.
Yes.
Allison Martinez?
I just want to say to Brian Ship, I put like a contact in there for the DOB that you could look at. I'm not saying he's the best in terms of response, but at least if you started track a record of trying to reach out and get a response, and that's helpful. You're not seeing as much like new projects. It's not because they don't have the right to do it, because that still exists. There is no moratorium, which is one of the things we had wanted to have while our community was working through its figuring out its plan. It's because the real estate market has shifted and it's not as easy, and the rates are higher, and it's not as easy to get money to do these projects. So that's why you're seeing somewhat of a slowdown. It's not because of a change of heart or because, if anything, they would be rushing to do more projects before rezoning occurs. But the money is not there.
Thank you.
Last thing, I do think it is not helpful to have elected officials just working without community at the table. Like ultimately, an elected official is just one person. They still need the rest of the community to help get buy-in from everyone else who doesn't, participate in these things. But they can't do that if they're not involved in decision making and if that's taken away from them. So I don't think that conversation should be happening between just one and two people, and then somehow we happen to hear about it at a random meeting here and there. No, that is not going to be effective strategy in the long run at all.
Okay, there goes that meeting again. I don't know what you're talking about. But
you did come in here and say that, this is what you heard. So obviously that occurred somewhere.
I had a conversation at the same meeting everyone else is at. Everyone else had conversations with the same people. That's the information that I got out of my conversations with them. We were all there.
That's what I'm saying. That is a conversation where that was never said in his statement on the stage. So, and then it was repeated from, you said, from the council member. So that means about dividing, so that means there are conversations occurring somewhere, whether it's a formalized meeting or not, there are conversations. We cannot have these siloed conversations because this is what we end up with, where people are not on the same page. And that's not a strategy that's going to do well for us in the long run.
I ask questions in my conversations, and I come to you with those answers. I don't know what else, and I don't know how to word that in a way to get everyone to understand. If I'm asking questions in my conversations and I share that information, that's what I'm trying to do.
I'm not
To keep
arguing.
everybody
I don't want
informed.
to argue about it. I'm just saying.
I don't know how else to.
There
I don't know
borough
what
hall
to do
meetings,
like
hall meetings or something. I'm just saying this is not effective. That's all I'm saying. So
I don't know
we
what's
need to
effective.
change something.
I don't know what's effective. I'm going to continue to ask questions that it pertains to this community and try to bring as much information to my committee members and anybody who wants answers as possible so I could be as well informed as I need to be. These are not siloed meetings. These are me asking questions in the segment and in the topics that were being brought up at the meetings we're at. You know, we just had a letter of support for our particular URLIP application that went through. And then this conversation spilled into that, you know? So I don't really know how to do that. Do what you're saying.
Maybe you could actually schedule a call after you've had this discussion. Have a scheduled call with those elected officials for the committee. Then that's what you should try to do then, because this like basically word of mouth, is not working. This telephone game isn't working.
Okay. I'll ask them to come to the meetings. And you could ask them whatever questions you need to ask them. I hope that's effective. Ms. Robinson.
Yes, I was going to say, maybe we should be writing letters to our so-called elected officials, trying to get their help in solving this issue. I mean, if this has been going on forever and ever, when is it going to end? Every time a new mayor is elected, we start from zero again with this contextual zoning? Is that what goes on here? I mean, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't believe this.
I thought you guys did write a letter though. And that letter was.
We did write a letter?
I think a letter was.
That's the thing, we wrote a letter through the rezoning committee, right?
Yeah.
Not through land use, and that's part of the problem. So we all need to be on the same page. And some of the people that are on this committee are on that committee, so they don't know what's going on there.
No, that letter was written for this in this committee.
Yeah, but we also wrote a letter from rezoning, right?
The rezoning committee wrote a letter, yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing things, I think we're just split into too many different pies, too many different pieces. I think we should come back together.
I'm just addressing the fact that a letter was written by your committee. Everything that she just said was done, and it was given to the representatives. I think it was addressed to multiple people, and it went out and it was approved last meeting. So that tactic has been taken currently. I don't think it's been enough time to see what the responses are from it, but that letter has been written.
Okay.
All right. Miss Marshall.
Good evening. I'm here listening to the different reason people. To me, everyone is taking this so personal. Number one, in order for us to have anything done, we're gonna have to spend some money. We will have to hire a legal team to represent us. Are we willing as people, as a community, to put money in the bank to say, listen, let's go out and find us a legal representation to protect us, to guide us what we need to do? But this back and forth on the meeting is personal. It's not helping us. And is there a point where we can say, is there a proposal? Can we put this on the ballot coming in maybe it's too late for June, but can it be on the ballot in November? And that's the way we voice our opinion. We go and we vote. And if it's on the ballot, I bet you all those people we have that we represent, that we voted for, all of a sudden we would hear their voices. But
Oh,
the
yeah.
only way this can be done, it has to be on the ballot. Is a proposal has to be on a ballot, or the other choice, we have to hire someone to represent all of us. And why I'm saying this, there's two things I was on. The one with the rezoning, they had a big Zoom meeting at college last month. Everybody wrote a letter or they went on the Zoom, they spoke about it. We still haven't got a decision yet. The other thing is about where the mayor trying to put everybody under this one plan. Here it goes. We have legal representation. Everybody's putting money into the pool, but just coming here on a meeting and you we all voicing a personal opinion, that's not going to get it done. You have to hurt people in their pocket. And the only way you can do this, you have to go out there and find legal representation. Are we willing to put money out to find that representation? If not, it's a lost cause. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see the hands. I'm gonna go with Ms. Bennett because I didn't see the hands. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. What I was going to say is I do agree with some of the comments said in regards to legal representation, but also we used to have a committee and we did get a whole lot done about 10 years ago. And we did not bicker back and forth. We sat down and went through strategy at that table to decide what we had to get done. That's why you had X, Y, and Z, and you had that study, because it came from that group. But what do we have now? We're talking about get rid of the politicians. Yes, shame them. But what we need to do, as she stated, is get the money. Yes. But we need to get together with these politicians. As you said, you only had a handful, what, 2 politicians that replied to you? Mr. Frey?
That's correct.
Out of what, how many, 6, 7? Well, we got to figure out what happened to the other politicians. Why we can't get them at a committee member or even a Zoom meeting with us to sit down together, all together. And they have to be willing to answer our questions. And I don't know about you or the other members, but myself and a few of us who were originally here 10, 15 years ago, we have lots of questions that they have to answer. And if they can't, as that young lady that just said, we're going to put somebody in there who will answer. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Ms. Martinez.
I just want to say that some of the elected officials you're speaking about have no jurisdiction here. It is a zoning is has to do with the city. So that's the city council members, not the state at this point.
Thank you. I saw that in the comments. Appreciate it. Ms. Robinson.
Yes, the politicians, did we not have a community board meeting where there were politicians, basically city council people at that meeting, I think, in, what is it, February? Am I correct?
Yes, the meeting before last. That's correct.
My question is, were they willing to sort of go with us on this as far as getting this non-contextual zoning thing done? I can't remember what they said.
I'm not going to recall anything from memory. I'm going to ask, does anyone else?
What I'm trying to say is that
I mean, I know what I heard.
it was like a question and answer situation, but I really didn't get the feel that they were going to do anything for us. That's what I got.
Is that the sentiment from everyone who's attendance at that meeting? Does anyone want to chime in?
I agree. This is Hazel Martinez. The two of them who don't really know all that much about land use, and one is pretty new, said that they were sending a letter to the borough president and the mayor, but we have no idea what that letter contains.
Correct.
They did not give any information.
Did we ever say copy, Hazel?
Okay. Yeah, this is George. My hands have been up for a long time, but I don't know if you noticed it.
I did. Coming to you now.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, it's just a word of encouragement for you, okay? Because I know it may seem like people may be talking to you like, and you may get discouraged because I did hear like a sense of, and maybe I'm wrong, but I hope you don't feel like they're beating up on you. Because
Nah, nah,
no,
nah.
no, I just want to make sure that, you know,
Nah.
we appreciate what you're doing for us, you know,
Um,
because it's not easy confronting the and not getting the answers that you need to bring back to us. Okay, so I don't want you to be discouraged in what you're doing because you are doing your best compared to other people, and I don't think I'm going to say anything. But basically, whatever you could get and whatever you could help us with, we appreciate it.
thank
Okay,
you.
so
Yeah, no,
that's
thank you.
what I want to say.
My skin is much thicker. Yeah, my skin has been
Yeah.
much thicker. Maybe
Okay.
maybe a year and a half ago that would have, but no.
Okay. No, yeah, I just want to make that little point in there, to make sure that whatever you're doing, I know I could, in my opinion, I think you're trying your best. Okay, and yes, I agree with everyone that's saying that by having two separate committees, it's really weakened us a lot because yes, there was, as a matter of fact, what's the last Sunday? There was another meeting that took place not too long ago. That there was another that Miss Boyd spoke. Half of the people in this meeting tonight weren't in that meeting. So it's a lot of different things that's going on that it's very difficult for us to attend every single meeting and some of us don't even know of some of the meetings that are taking place because I found out about certain meetings because someone called me or texted me and told me, asked me, did you know about this meeting? But yes, and this is not something with you. I think this is something that needs to be brought up to the chair of the board, that we really need to try to get everyone that is interested in this thing together, get this all of us in a room together, or not in a room together, but in a meeting together, and discuss it so we all could know exactly what we're talking about and what's been said.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Ms. Viglianti, hand is up.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, George, because that's what I've been trying to say. I think that we really do need to speak to the chair, because it was his decision to split the committee, to add this extra committee. And it's, our energies are in two different places. They need to come back together. Either we just have one rezoning committee or we have a land use committee. I don't think both doing the same thing is a good idea. The other thing is that
I can't say that we've been addressing, I can't say that we've been addressing land use or zoning issues in our land use meetings. We've been
What?
saying, I can't say that we've been addressing zoning issues in our land use.
Well, we are now, so.
No, this isn't a land use
It's
meeting.
not land use.
It's not a
I don't
land.
even know, yeah, I don't even know I don't even know what we're doing anymore.
You're putting the face to the. Yeah,
Sorry, you're right.
I'm sorry.
But it's still, but that's the problem, you know,
It's just a
it's a
familiar
business
face.
problem. I was at a meeting, the same meeting that George was at on Sunday. Then I'm at this meeting. I don't know what meetings I'm going to anymore, rezoning, land use, special meetings, and we're all talking about the same thing at all these meetings.
Excuse me. I'd like to say something. Hello? I'd like to say something.
I'm not finished though?
No,
I'm
no,
not
no, no.
finished.
The meet, I don't want you to confuse apples with oranges and bananas. The meeting on Sunday was to rile up the community people to get them involved. Because
I know, but I'm saying
no,
that.
but you tried to make it seem like it was something that it wasn't. We don't
I'm not
have
trying to make it feel like it's anything. I'm just saying there's a lot of different meetings about the same thing. And if it would be nice if all the committees could be together.
All right, hold on.
Okay, but you're trying to make a point.
Say anything.
You're trying to make a point to make it seem like there's too many meetings about something. And Kwame
No.
is doing a wonderful job
I'm not
taking
saying
over.
that, I'm not saying anything
hold on,
against
hold
our
on.
chair. I'm not speaking against our chair at all. I'm not, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying there's too many meetings. We can have 20 meetings, but it should be all under the same umbrella. We have two different committees and we're talking about the same thing a lot in different committees at different meetings. We just need to bring it all together so everybody's at the same meetings all the time. Because I'm at different meetings and there's always different people and it's just, we don't know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. I'm not saying anything against our chair. I think he's doing a good job. I have no problem with that. So that's not my intention.
So sometimes it's a little tough seeing a face from somewhere else handling this, but yeah, this is a rezoning meeting. We're here to speak.
Yeah,
to
I
the
forgot
gentleman.
that, that's my bad, but the
Yeah.
still, we do have two
Right.
separate committees that are both working on this thing.
All right, and then my meeting will be next week.
But you're
Yes,
right.
sir.
So, but I just wanted to say one other thing, that, we're talking about politicians all the time, and the problem is that politicians come and go. And, that's why all the work we did in land use didn't get anywhere, because de Blasio left and then they were changing the administration and we had to wait. So if we're always waiting for politicians and what they have to say, I don't put any weight on that. Again, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. It's a
Kwame,
shame.
can I just say something?
Is that who?
Okay, I just want to say,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. The grassroots meeting is to get involvement for the community. It has nothing to do with land use. It has nothing to do with rezoning. It's just community involvement. The community doesn't know what's going on with Community Board 17. We're just trying to get the community excited, and that's it. And it just so happens that rezoning is one of them. That's it. Thank you.
I want to make sure that we just center back on the actual topic of rezoning and that we keep it there. Try to keep it there, So I'm going to go to Ms. Robinson, then Ms. Marshall, then Ms. Viglianti. Is your hand still up or is it down? I'm going to drop your hand. Ms. Robinson?
Yes, basically, from what I see, the rezoning committee is concentrating on this non-contextual zoning situation. Land use is concentrating on the building, whatever's being built in the community. It's two separate issues. So I don't know why you want to mix two committees in one. It does not make sense. You have to concentrate on one thing, get that done, and move on to the other. I see nothing wrong with having two committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
What I would like to say is that Farah Louis is on the ballot this year. She's running for re-election. Now, if we need her support, I think that's our leverage we have. She needs us. So we need to get with her to get an answer. Either she's with us with the zoning or she's not, because she's on the ballot and she wants to get reelected. So maybe we can try to get her to see our way and where her head is located, if she's going to go with us or if she's going to go with all those builders, because that's what the politicians do. It's not for us, because the builders are the one who's supporting them financially, and they're not really there for helping us. They just give us a lot of talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Hazel Martinez?
First of all, the community board, the board itself voted to separate the two. The two are related. It's not like you can work one and then the other. They're something that they're not mutually exclusive. They're very much intertwined. But the board did vote to separate these two issues, and so therefore it's not, it didn't just happen like that. It's something that the board wanted to do, and I think it can be very effective if it is handled properly. And we really have to, the city council people, I want to be sure that they really know what land use is and what they're talking about, because they're speaking on our behalf, but I'm not convinced that they're really speaking in our best interest at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Oh, the new business roundtable discussion. Any other questions before we close out this particular session?
Yes,
Who's that? Miss.
Ms.
Okay.
Question.
Okay. Good.
What is your feedback from Ms. Lewis from the meetings you've been going to, and how is she representing us from your opinion?
The only meetings that I was involved in was to address the letter that you guys drafted. And her position is in support, as far as I know. You know, I think that at the other meeting, she was at the table. I felt like she said she was at support, but if it needs to be more defined, I'm not in objection to that. You know, if you want it to be galvanized in a document or some other factor, I won't ever object to anything like that. But as far as my issues in the business of land use
Mm-hmm.
and the issues as far as the storage facility that we just handled, she's been in support of those issues. She wrote us a letter of support that we actually sent in our yellow response yesterday with her letter of support attached. Someone else, Mr. Darrell Holland, one of our committee members from his organization. So as far as the business of land use and that's concerned, she's been supportive. I can't speak because I'm not in all zoning meetings. I don't get into all the other meetings that may or may not be involved in, but the ones I am invited to, is always in support, it seems. You know,
So she's been attentive.
she's been attentive. She's been the only one that's been responsive. I have to be honest with as far as that. For me, just being a fly on the wall and sometimes being invited to a meeting to address, clarification on certain issues as far as our community board's concerned, she's been supportive. But if more needs to be done, then more needs to be done.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I mean, she was at our meeting with a few other people there. There were other supportive members there, but with this particular topic, as it was said in the chat, it's a city council thing, so it falls directly on her lap. So if we need to get more from her, I've already texted Ms. James that she needs to invite her to your next meeting so you guys could have that discussion with her straight up. Hopefully she attends.
Thank you.
No problem. Ms. Martinez, and I'm gonna close it out with Ms. Bennett. So Alice.
I just think that something that we need to do is just strategize a real campaign. Part of it is that we have to look at all of the voting parties going forward for any plan that we put forward. And we have to mobilize a massive community engagement response, because the reality is DCP and all of these other agents, and that agency in particular, the Planning Commission, they're going to look at the numbers of people that we can say that we represent. The petition can help with that, driving the numbers that we have backing us, but we do need our elected officials to have us at those meetings with the other elected officials that are involved, especially when it comes to the mayor and with the agency at the agency level. We have to be able to be at those meetings so that we can then disseminate plans, get out posters, flyers, and education to the rest of the community, because we have to show that level of engagement. And if we're not doing the blocking and tackling of that, we're kind of spinning in wheels, and we're not going to be in a position to really be at the decision-making table, which is what we've been working to be at. It's not, I don't want elected officials to speak for me alone. It has to be in concert. It has to be looking at the fact that we have a lot of institutional knowledge because we've been the ones doing the work when they weren't here. So you can't speak for me now and not include me in what is being said. Like, we have now the chair had a meeting, had a call with the borough president on the 22nd. We're supposed to now wait a whole month to hear what were the results of that conversation, even though we need to be doing some work in this month to move whatever ball was discussed forward. So we have to do things a bit differently in order to achieve some different results.
Fair point. Fair point. Facts, like the comments. I don't know who said it. Somebody typed it. Facts. Representation is important. Ms. Bennett, I'll let you close out the session, and then I'll make comments.
On what Allison said, facts, yes. Also, time is of the essence. It's just not the spinning our wheels, it's wasting our time. We can get more done in that small amount of time instead of just throwing it away and waiting a whole month. But also what I want to say, there's another part, and I mentioned it earlier, when someone moves in next door to you and they build a large building, they get a tax write-off. How can we address that to go after that? Because that's at the governor's level.
Governor's level and the 421 tax abatement as it stands has been expired. It's been expired and it's probably going to be readdressed.
I believe the governor was supposed to extend it.
I don't believe it was extended. It's
They
currently
were
expired.
Yeah, they were talking about it in the news about 2 weeks ago.
There's some move to try to extend it because they don't have a replacement.
Yeah,
The problem is that the governor also has the 3%, housing plan that we will also have to then figure out how all these different areas are matching up to those goals.
And yes, and the text amendments. We're getting hit with a lot of stuff.
Also, what I want to finish with, if you didn't mind, was that 3%, it has to include the rest of the city that's already contextually rezoned. So why should it fall on our backs and it's not going to fall on theirs?
I'll pay devil's credit. He kind of said that he was going to spread the wealth and go to the neighborhoods that were contextually rezoned and uproot them as well. I think he said that at our meeting, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, he may have said that, like you said, whether it's true or not is the word more or not.
But I'm going to close out the roundtable discussion as just because of time. I'm going to say that representation is important. I hear you. Try to get not their representatives, but them at these meetings so you could ask the questions for yourselves. I mean, it's tough with their schedules to try to coordinate something, but we'll put the appropriate amount of pressure to try to get them to address you so you're satisfied. Really, we represent you. And if we're not doing it in a satisfactory way, we've got to do better to try to get them in front of you so you can hear from the horse's mouth. I'll work on that. Got an executive meeting on Monday, and I'll mention that. I also lean selfishly to say that representation is important. Even though this is a non-zoning matter, I'll just bring an example. For instance, Allison and I were in a meeting last week as far as for the artwork for the Chisholm Center. We were the only 2 people from Community Board 17 there. And had we not been there, they would have rolled out the Kente cloth and it would have looked crazy in there, So having your voices in the appropriate rooms, no matter how small, no matter how, it has an effect. It definitely has an effect.
For the record, I was representing Brooklyn Level Up, not Community Board 17.
So there we go. So I was the only person from Community Board 17 there.
No, there was another person who was on your board as well.
Was it?
Yes.
I can't
remember her name at the moment, but yes.
All right. Well, you know what we're up against. Representation is important regardless. And as we move the agenda along, we're moving to unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business?
Yes, I see. Oh, it's me, Miss Bennett. I see all over on the corner of Rogers and Church, they're excavating.
Yeah, we pulled actually had the permits pulled for that. Yeah.
So how tall is that building supposed to be?
6 stories. 6 stories, commercial mixed use.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna try to see if I could get it before the end of it's in our WhatsApp group. A lot of information flies through there. But yeah, we pulled that information up the other day. Somebody mentioned it. We pulled it up in commercial mixed use, 6 story. Yeah.
And I believe there's another one going up on right behind it on Rogers, and I think it's Lloyd.
We'll save that for our meeting, Ms. Bennett.
Yes, I about to say, isn't that land use?
Yeah. We'll save that for our meeting.
Building, period.
All right. We'll save that for our meeting next week.
Don't confuse me. I'm already confused.
Yeah. Let's not do that. We'll save it for our meeting, which is next week. Shameless plug, Thursday, 7:30. Hearing no other unfinished business? Excellent. Can we move on to adjournment?
Mr. Chair, before you leave, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Westcott? Yes,
Yeah.
Mr.
The reason why I don't know if this would have anything to do with the meeting, but I had suggested that you speak at the church pertaining to Church Chisholm. I spoke to my
Oh, yeah.
pastor, and she wants to know when you'll be coming. So
I told Ms. Frazier to give you my information. We'll speak on that off air. Yeah, we will do a church run.
okay, all right. So I made an appointment for you at my church already. The first visit.
Yeah, I spoke with Ms. Frazier about that. We'll talk about that off air.
All right, beautiful. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Westcott.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to adjournment. Someone move to adjourn?
So move.
Excuse me?
So move, Westcott.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I
Sorry, state your name.
Hudson, I second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. The meeting has been moved and properly seconded, and adjournment is official. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. And
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, good night, all.
Good night.